What if everything you have been told about reality is incomplete? What if the chair you are sitting on right now is not solid? What if your own hands, the skin, the bones, the flesh you have lived in your entire life are not what they appear to be? What if science, not spirituality, not religion, not philosophy, but science itself has already confirmed something that most human beings will live and die without ever knowing? You are not a physical being. You are a field of energy, a vibrating, conscious intellect field of energy, temporarily taking the shape of a person. And once you truly understand what that means, nothing will ever look the same again. Welcome, this is True Awakening with Thabang, and today we are going on a journey not outward into the stars but inward into the very fabric of what you are made of. We are going to explore the quantum field. We are going to look at what modern physics has discovered about the nature of reality, consciousness, and existence. And we are going to ask the question that scientists, mystics, and philosophers have been circling for centuries. Is consciousness the product of the brain, or is the brain product of consciousness? Before we begin, I want you to do something. Look at your hand. Really look at it. See the lines, the texture, the skin. Feel the weight of it. Feel it as something real, something solid, something certain. Now hold that feeling, because by the end of this video, that certainty will be gently, beautifully, permanently dissolved. Let us begin at the beginning, not the beginning of your life, the beginning of matter itself, the illusion of solidity. In 1897, a British physicist named J.J. Thomas made a discovery that would quietly begin to unravel everything humanity thought it knew about the physical world. He discovered the electron, a particle so small, so incomprehensibly tiny that it would take 100 million of them lined up side by side to span the width of a single human hair. This was the beginning of atomic physics, and what it revealed was extraordinary. The atom, the building block of all matter, of every rock, every ocean, every mountain, every living thing, is almost entirely empty space. Not mostly empty, almost entirely empty. If you were to take the nucleus of a hydrogen atom and expand it to the size of a marble, the electron orbiting it would be found roughly 1 mile away. 1 mile. Between the nucleus and the electron, nothing. No matter, no thing, just space. This means that the table in front of you, the floor beneath your feet, the walls of the room you are sitting in are 99.99999% empty space. The reason they feel solid is not because they are solid. It is because the electromagnetic force between atoms repels each other strongly enough that your hand cannot pass through the table. You are not touching anything. You are experiencing the electromagnetic resistance between two fields of energy. Let that breathe for a moment. The ancient Hindu and Buddhist traditions have said for thousands of years that the physical world is Maya. Not that the world does not exist, but that it does not exist in the way we perceive it. The senses deceive that beneath the appearance of solid form, there is only vibration, only energy, only awareness. For centuries, the scientific world dismissed this as mysticism. Then quantum physics arrived, and the mystics were proven right. The quantum field is not a metaphor. It is not a spiritual concept borrowed from ancient texts. It is a mathematical reality, a field that permeates all of space, that underlies all matter and energy, and from which every particle in existence emerges and returns. Think of it this way. Imagine the surface of the ocean. Waves rise and fall. Each wave appears to be a separate, distinct thing. It has a shape, shape, a weight, a height, a direction. But every wave is not separate from the ocean. Every wave is the wave from ocean, temporarily taking the shape of a wave. You are a wave. Every atom in every star, every grain of sand, every breath of wind, all of it waves in the same ocean. The ocean is the quantum field. Now, here is where it becomes extraordinary. In 1909, a physicist named Geoffrey Taylor performed one of the most important experiments in the history of science. You may know it as the double slit experiment. He fired individual particles, electrons, one at a time, through a barrier with two small slits at a detector screen on the other side. The expectation was simple. Fire a particle through two slits and you get two lines on the screen, like throwing balls at a wall with two holes, two clusters. Simple physics. But that is not what happened. Instead of two lines, the electrons created an interference pattern, the same pattern you would see if you dropped two stones into still water and watch the ripples interact. This should be impossible. A single particle fired alone cannot interfere with itself unless it is not traveling as a particle at all. Unless, when unobserved, the electron travels as a wave of probability, passing through both slits simultaneously, interfering with itself, existing in multiple places at once. But then the scientists did something else. They placed a measuring device at the split to observe which split the electron actually passed through, and the moment they observed it, the interference pattern had disappeared. The electron stopped behaving like a wave. It chose one path. It became a particle. It behaved differently because it was being washed. The act of observation of consciousness directing its attention collapsed the wave of infinite possibility into a single defined reality. Listen to that again slowly. Consciousness collapses possibility into reality. This is not poetry. This is physics. What the double split experiment reveals is that at the quantum level, reality is not fixed. It is not a predetermined mechanical system ticking along whether you observe it or not. It is a field of infinite possibility, and it responds to consciousness. It responds to the observer. It responds to you. Now, let's dive into consciousness as the source. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, Nobel Prize in Physics 1918, one of the greatest scientific minds who ever lived. This is what he said: "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. Not a mystic, not a philosopher, not a guru on a mountaintop, the father of quantum theory. Nikola Tesla, the inventor whose work powers the modern world, said this: "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomenon, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Albert Einstein, who spent the final decades of his life searching for a unified theory of everything, wrote, "A human being is a part of the whole called by us the universe. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. An optical delusion of consciousness, the feeling of being a separate self, a bounded, isolated individual, is, accordingly to Einstein, a delusion." This is where quantum physics and ancient wisdom arrived at the same shore from opposite directions. The Vedic traditions of India, over 5,000 years old teachings that the ultimate nature of reality is Brahman. the one undivided infinite field of consciousness from which all things emerge. The individual self, what they call the Atman, is not separate from Brahman. It is Brahman. The wave is not separate from the ocean. In the Zen tradition, they call it Sanyata, emptiness, not the emptiness of absence, but the emptiness of pure potential, the ground of being from which all forms arise. In the Christian mythical tradition, Meister Eckhart wrote in the 14th centuries, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. One seeing, one awareness, undivided." From the East, from the West, from the ancient world, and from the modern laboratory, the message is the same. There is one field, one consciousness, one awareness experiencing itself through the infinite forms, and you are not separate from it. You never were. Now let's dive into living from the field. Understanding the quantum field is one thing, living from it is another, because knowledge that stays only in the mind changes nothing. It becomes another interesting idea in a world already full of interesting ideas. But knowledge that moves into the body, into the breath, into the attention, into the daily choices, that it's transformation. So how do we live from this understanding? The first practice is this: notice where your attention goes. Remember what the double split experiment showed us, that the act of observation collapses possibility into reality. Your attention is not passive, it is generative. Where your attention rests consistently, that is what you are calling into form. Most people spend the majority of their attention on what has already happened or on what they fear might happen. They live in the past or the future, replaying old events or rehearsing anxieties, and the field responds to that attention. It collapses possibility around those patterns, and so the same reality keeps returning, not because the universe is cruel, but because the observer keeps observing the same things. The second practice is frequency. Everything in the quantum field is vibration. Every thought carries a frequency. Every emotion carries a frequency. Shame, fear, and resentment vibrate at a low frequency, not as a moral judgment, but as a measurable energetic reality. Gratitude, love, vibrate at higher frequencies, and the field, like a radio receiver, responds to the dominant frequency you broadcast. This is not the law of attraction as it is often simplified. This is physics applied to consciousness. You cannot simply think positive thoughts while your nervous system is locked in survival mode. The field reads the body, not just the mind. This is why breath matters, why stillness matters, why sitting in silence even for 10 minutes, it's not a luxury but a recalibration. You are tuning the instrument. The third practice is identity. This is perhaps the most important. How you see yourself. It's the lens through which the field delivers your experience. If at the deepest level of your self-concept you believe you are small, unworthy, or powerless, the field will confirm it, not out of curiosity, but because the field is responsive, is a mirror. It gives you the reality that matches your most deeply held understanding of yourself. The quantum teaching, the non-duality teaching, it's not that you should replace a negative self-image with a positive one. It is that you should recognize that the self you have been imagining yourself to be is a construction, a wave that forgot it was the ocean, and what you actually are beneath the name, the story, the history, it's the field itself. Infinite, unconditioned, already whole. We begin today with a question: What if everything you have been told about reality is incomplete? And now, at the close of this journey, perhaps a question has transformed. Perhaps it is no longer a question of whether reality is what it seems. Physics has answered that. Reality is not solid. It is not fixed. It is not separate from the consciousness that observe it. The deeper question, the one that now opens, is what will you do with this? Because knowledge of quantum field is not meant to be stored in the mind like a fact. It is meant to be felt, to be lived, to slowly dissolve the walls between the you that you think you are and the you that you actually are. The mystics did not say, understand that you are one with all things. They said, be still and know. Be still. Not the stillness of emptiness, but the stillness of a field that is so full prior to all movement and sound and thought that it needs nothing to be added to it. You are that stillness. You were always that stillness. The thoughts came and went through it. The feelings rose and dissolved in it. The years passed across it like clouds passing across the sky. And the sky, clear, open, boundless, was never touched. You are not a person who is trying to awaken. You are awakenness itself, briefly believing it is a person. The quantum field does not need you to earn your place in it. You are it. The consciousness that is reading these words right now, the awareness that is noticing the sound of this voice, the silent present behind every thought and sensation, that is the field knowing itself. That is what you are. That is what you have always been. Thank you for being here. Genuinely, in a world full of noise and distraction, choosing to sit with something this deep for this long is not nothing. That is already the field moving through you. That is already the awakening expressing itself as curiosity, as seeking, as the desire to know what is truly. If something in this video landed for you, if even one moment made you pause, made you feel something you couldn't quite name, hold on to that. That's it. That's the fact. Follow it. New video on this channel every week, each one going deeper, each one pulling the thread a little further. Subscribe if this is the kind of knowledge you are hungry for, and share this with someone who is ready. Stay true, stay awakened.